After a series of incoherent interviews and low-energy press conferences in Michigan, Donald Trump's campaign has plunged even deeper into disarray. Before we get into his latest crash and burn events, let me share what I thought was the most exciting moment from last night's DNC. And it was none other than Michelle Obama, the legendary former First Lady who brought the House down when she called out Trump by using his own words against him.
Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
That was just one of several standing ovation moments that she and her husband Barack Obama received during their iconic back-to-back speeches at last night's convention. Now, juxtapose that energy with this eerily stale press conference that Donald Trump held in Howell, Michigan, where he tries to convince a small batch of patrons that suburban women still like him.
Women living in the suburbs, I keep hearing about the suburban woman doesn't like Trump. Well, I think it's a fake poll, because why would they like me? I keep the suburbs safe. I stopped low-income towers from rising right alongside of their house, and I'm keeping the illegal aliens away from the suburbs. I think that they like me a lot. I think it's a lot of fake polls.
Basically, Donald Trump just said that he's keeping poor people away from suburban women, and he infused some xenophobic rhetoric against immigrants as well. But no, Donald, those polls are not fake. It turns out suburban women actually don't like you, and the reasons are fairly simple. Crime went up during your presidency, and since you've entered the race, you vowed to take away their social security checks and take their daughters' rights away from them, and by the way, you're an adjudicated rapist and a radical extremist, which clearly Donald Trump does not like being called, because here he is denying any allegations that he is a radical.
Just so you understand, I am not a radical at all.
Inciting violent coups against your own government and stealing government documents and stashing them in your bathroom is pretty radical, dude. So is being a convicted felon with 91 criminal charges. Speaking of being a convicted felon, Donald Trump went on Hugh Hewitt's right-wing podcast to straight up lie to viewers, claiming that he is not, in fact, a convicted felon.
When they talk about convicted felon, well, first of all, I'm not a convicted felon, number one. That doesn't happen for a while.
Actually, it did happen. You got charged with 34 felony counts. But to Donald's defense, it isn't fair to just label him as a convicted felon. He's also a delusional convicted felon. So delusional that back at his presser in Michigan, he slipped up and said Kamala Harris was the president.
Pouring into our country. And she's the president.
Not yet, Trump, but in less than 2.5 months, she will be, because now more than ever, Republicans are coming out against Donald Trump. The GOP mayor of Arizona, John Giles, slammed him at the DNC and endorsed Harris. Adam Kinzinger is expected to speak Thursday night at the national convention, and last night, Donald Trump's own former press secretary, Stephanie Grisham, came out and exposed how little Donald Trump thinks of his own supporters.
I saw him when the cameras were off. Behind closed doors, Trump mocks his supporters. He calls them basement dwellers. On a hospital visit one time when people were dying in the ICU, he was mad that the cameras were not watching him.
Oof, basement dwellers, a damning revelation which she followed up by endorsing Kamala Harris. So with all this momentum surrounding the DNC, Donald Trump was seemingly left with no choice other than to baselessly accuse the DNC of lying about him during another rant in which he sounds like he's on the verge of falling asleep.
They lied last night about things that nobody's ever seen. They lied about soldiers at a gravesite. They lied about Charlottesville. They lied about
Actually, bro, you did call fallen soldiers suckers and losers. You did say there were very fine people at the neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville, and you continue to lie about several things, so much so that even a Fox News guest, Robert Wolf, went on to debunk several of your lies after you were finished rambling in Michigan.
I think the one thing I would respectfully just disagree with President Trump when he talks about energy independence. We've never been more energy independent than in the history of America. We're doing 14 million barrels a day. When he talks about rebuilding industrial America, there was a manufacturing recession with him. Now we're building more factories than ever. A Georgia battery plant, a Wisconsin semiconductor plant, a chip plant in Arizona.
All swing states, by the way. So we've reached the point in the race where even Fox News is pushing back on his lies. So you know it's game over for Donald Trump's campaign if the trajectory stays on this downward trend. All in all, it has been one devastating month for Donald Trump, who continues to dig his own grave with every move he makes. 76 days out from the election, and things are looking really good for Harris and the Dems. DNC Night 3, here we come. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Gen Z Perspective. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star review on Apple, because as you can see, the MAGA lunatics have bombarded the podcast with 0-star reviews. I think we're worth a little more than that, but I also think it shows you how terrified they are of our generation. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time on the Gen Z Perspective. The Gen Z Perspectives theme song was created and produced by Pokari.